Hello, everybody. How are you? Welcome to another episode of Digital is Business and Business of Digital. Today we have Russell with us. Russell is co-founder of Snapped. He's a developer turned startup founder and based out of UK. Currently, he's in Scotland, and he started doing videos a lot. So maybe something I will explain is my story also. I was an engineer and then started doing UI UX because I liked it. I like designing, and then moved into marketing. So he was an engineer. I don't know if he's an engineer or not. Russell, are you an engineer?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
Okay, so Russell was also an engineer. He liked Snapchat, which we talked about in late 2015. So they started using that for their product. And today he's going to share his journey about why video marketing is important and what are the major trends for it. Russell, let us start with the story where why did you get into videos first?
Yeah, it's definitely a strange one, I suppose, for a developer. Normally, like the idea you think of is like people in a room just typing away, and that was definitely what I was like before this. So this was back in around the end of 2015. This whole journey started, and we had another company before this where it was basically a place for developers to share snippets of code. And so I was watching content on Snapchat around sort of different topics where people would go on there and just record videos on their phone and you could watch them back. But these were those stories that disappeared after 24 hours. So you had this urgency to watch it before it would disappear. Um, but the one thing we noticed with that was that it was a great way for you to make content quickly that you could then get in front of people. Um, so we started using this ourselves for how we could just, if it's a sort of like a marketing plan for our company at the time. But as we saw how popular this content was and that people were just, this was disappearing every day, we thought that there should be something that they can do to save their content. So that was our journey, how our journey started with Snapped, and my journey in a sense as well with making video content and learning how this can be used as a developer and someone who was at the time quite scared of going in front of camera. That was where it all began for me, really.
Okay. So, as you said, it was scary in going in front of camera. So, what were your initial thoughts when you started, and how did you motivate yourself? Because one thing that I know about developers is they always want to be in their own shell, and they would like to do their own thing and then go. It is done. They don't want to come in front of anybody, or most of the time, it is said that they are not good communicators in that way, and the field that you are getting into is into communication, it is into visual art. So how did you motivate yourself, and what were the challenges that you faced in the initial days?
Definitely. I mean, the motivation at the start was because I was just like, this company has to work. I have to find a way of doing it. And I'm I'm not going to lie, it was really difficult at the start. So it was just now, if I was to say what is the sort of the three best ways you can start doing this, is first is not worrying about firstly how you come across. So even now, if I make a mistake or something, I'll just forget about it and just keep focusing. But to put it into perspective, to make a 1 minute video back then, it would probably take me between 30 minutes to an hour just to record it, because I'd record it and then be like, oh no, why did I say that? Or the lighting might be wrong or something, or I'd get confused over the point I was trying to make and I'll just stop and start again. But to actually do this effectively, you need to sort of not think about any of that. So the best way to get started still now, I think, is to use the front facing camera on your phone. So most phones these days, the cameras are more than enough to use on social media or even on YouTube, for example. So all you need to do really is just say, this week, I'm going to dedicate it to getting comfortable on video. So all you would do is pick a topic that you're really interested in. So for me, that was cricket. So I would record a short video every day. So at least a minute around that mark every day of me talking about the latest matches or something to do with the sport. And then over the course of a week, you find that you get more comfortable. And what you also do is you change the way that you would actually communicate it based on the video. So at the start, I thought, because this is going to be shared to a lot of people, the way I'd do it at the beginning is I'd talk about it as if I was like presenting it to a lot of people. But the best way when you're talking, especially with a video, is to speak as if you're talking to one specific person, because when someone's watching a video, it is just one person. It's like it's them and you, and everything else doesn't really matter. So you want to try and build that connection. But anyway, back to when you're first recording it, after the second day of recording like this short 1 minute video, watch it back and just think of three things that could be improved. So for me, for example, I think it was, for one, is talk slower, because I'd be rushing through what I was trying to say. And then the next point is either be more expressive or less expressive. So I found I would either move my hands a lot or not move them at all. So I'm quite rigid. And over time, I found the best way is to just be conscious of how much you're moving. And then that sort of dictates how fast you're talking. And so, but it'll be different for everyone, the different way that you would naturally speak. But then, so once you've made those 3 points, carry on recording the videos over the course of the week, but just be mindful of those points that you've noted down. And then at the end of the week, you should notice, I think for everyone, you'll definitely see an improvement. But what you've created then is not only have you made a video that you could, use and share somewhere, but you've made something that's completely unedited. So it's all in one take, which for most people recording YouTube videos now, that never happens. Like there's always like different edits here and there. So you've already made something that is, much better, not necessarily better to watch, but better in terms of how complicated that would be to do. So when you then move into, recording live streams, making videos on YouTube, it's then much easier because you've started from this sort of week-long process that only really takes 7 minutes in total.
So the week-long process that you said, it's a great start. Maybe I will also try to implement that. One thing which I found out was talk slower. I have got the same feedback. So this is the 10th episode of our podcast. And after hearing the first two, everybody said that you need to calm a bit. That you said that sometimes people get more excited and sometimes don't in that way. Yeah. So those are the some things. But do you feel that people sometimes don't judge themselves that much in a way that they would be very frightened in a way of uploading things? So can there be other way around where you don't do things publicly, but again are creating something for your community in that way?
Yeah, definitely. The first step, it's like you say, what are people going to think? They're going to judge me in a certain way. But the first thing I found is because I was using Snapchat back then, I just posted it because I knew it would be deleted after 24 hours anyway. But what you typically find is something that you might be worried about, or, is someone going to say this or say that? Or even if, do I look nervous? What you find usually in videos is that just comes across as being authentic. You look more real. And these days where so many videos are edited and, you don't know if someone's telling the truth, if someone's, you can see they're trying to, put forth their views and go on camera. And even if they're nervous and shaking a little bit, that can actually help. It can make people want to support you. They'll become a supporter, and it comes across, as long as it's not, what would you say? As long as the camera is steady and you're making sense of what you're saying, but just seem a bit nervous, I think those little bits actually can help. But like you say about how do I have to publish it? You don't have to. If you say that first week is just to make you feel comfortable on camera, then you can just keep it for yourself. And then maybe in the future, when you've become more comfortable and you've been posting for say a few months, that could become a video in itself. This is what it took to get here. Here's my very first videos. And then people will be surprised, how far you've come in that time. And you can use that as a way to reflect as well and gain more confidence from the improvements that you've made already.
Understood. So talking in terms of improvements that are there, so you would have seen the trends changing for last 4 years as you are creating content in that way, with Snapchat initially having a video based tool as a thing. Then Instagram tried to copy stories came everywhere. Now they are on LinkedIn also in that way. So now we are seeing TikTok. So TikTok is there, then TikTok is being copied by everybody. The format is being copied. So what do you think, what are the major trends so which are going to be there in 2021, which people should know about, or should follow?
Definitely. I mean, if you look at all of those apps that you've mentioned there, and even the stories format and TikTok, the thing I would look at is what do they all have in common? And the biggest thing that connects all of those different formats is that one, it's mobile, it's short form, and it's usually a person on the screen with not much else, in the frame. So it's just a person talking to you. So in a way, you could say it's similar to a FaceTime call or even a Zoom chat. It's very similar format, but they're on a phone, or they might have music in the background, or quick edits that you find on TikTok. But the format is more about humanizing video content. So it's moving away from this more, I'd say on YouTube, typically before they went through this trend of everything had to be edited perfectly and it couldn't be uploaded unless it was, this perfect produced, almost like a mini film. But with Snapchat, especially, I think it started this trend of just humanizing social media. And now this is coming across to YouTube. So I would call it minimal editing. So it's basically you're taking out things that you don't want in the video, but everything else basically stays in there. And if you look at TikTok in particular, that's basically how it works. So you film a little bit, then you film a little bit more, maybe add music, you don't have to, and then publish. So it's shortening that time frame from recording or whenever you create it to publishing. And I think, aside from, trends in terms of the actual content you want to create, the biggest trend I think is shortening the gap between when you create the content and when you publish it. Which is, I suppose it's quite a simple thing to say, but when you really think about it, it's just recording it, not thinking too much about it, and then publish. And then the more you do that, you start to worry less about, the moment of recording and then publishing, because the main goal of making videos or content on social media or whatever it is, any form of content, is to create conversations, because ideally you either want to create followers, you want to sell more products if you're a company, and that comes through starting these conversations, and that comes through making more content. Obviously you don't want to you want to have some sort of value, so every video you create needs to give some value, but that could just be entertainment value. If you're an influencer, that's sort of the main type of content they create. But I would say, especially on social media, the biggest trend is just towards having short human videos that people can interact with.
So when we see the trend, and that you said that videos are very important in a way, and people like to see, I think more human side is, maybe if we can call it a raw video in a way, what is more real in that sense. So if we talk about the sense how things were changing in 2016, 2017, a lot of people or handles in which were, maybe if you say Manchester United or cricket teams also, they all started showing what was behind the scenes. So what was happening in the dressing rooms and those kind of things. If I both of us are a cricket fan, so we know after the scandal which happened with Australian team, they had a series which came on Amazon Prime, which just showed what happened behind the scenes for the company, in that way, for the whole team, and the 18 months journey which was there. And in the same ways, people like to see more real. It is coming up. So what can the brands do, or small agencies do in this way? Because again, they don't have that much content in the first place, because they are agency and they are in that way. If you are handling a brand, it is easy because you have to talk about those things. What would be some suggestions which a agency can grab onto, that these are the things as an agency you can do? What would be that?
It's a great question. I think the first thing I'd look for is try and have one person first who can be like the host of that agency. So one person who leads the content on camera. You can have different people behind the scenes and you can highlight different people on the team, but I think definitely start with one person who either feels the most comfortable to be on camera or is the most knowledgeable about a certain topic that you want your agency to be known for. Pick one particular niche, even if you work in lots of different areas, which most agencies do. Pick one niche which can be the cornerstone of your content, and then from there just start to document what a typical day looks like, because like you mentioned there, and still now the most popular type of content that people really want to see is behind the scenes. but that could be, there's different areas within that as well. It could be like the morning routines of different people within the company. It doesn't necessarily have to be on the work side. And that can then get people interested more, around that particular part. So it could be like, the coffee machine and the conversations that start around there. And it just starts to make each part of the company, again, more human. It breaks down that barrier again behind, we're a company. I think the biggest example of that is with banks. They're the most example of this. It's a company, there's no people behind it. But when you start to see that, I mean, recently I noticed, it's a slightly different subject, but where lockdown happened here in the UK, and they couldn't have their proper camera team in to record a new ad for TV. It was just their staff talking mostly on their phones, and they edited together afterwards. And that made them seem so much more human compared to, the really expensive ads they made before. And I'm sure that would have actually helped build that connection and trust with people. And it'll be exactly the same for agencies. If you just have people there talking through their normal routine, and then add in a few snippets then of what the company does, that particular niche, and then build from that. I think that's the best way. But it's really important, I think, to have that consistency of one particular host, and then they can then introduce more people throughout the journey of the content as well.
So, do you think, Russell, that having a particular person leading the charge will always help agency as a whole? So, suppose we have Gary Vee also. So he leads the charge of his agency. He is also agency owner at the end of the day, though it is a very large company. Then we have Elon Musk. He is the one who is leading the charge of the same. But on the other side, we have people at Google also. Both the founders are not so active. They don't do anything. And then the product is leading that way. Facebook also, the founder is not that much active on the platforms. But yeah, he is vocal about what he thinks in that way. Microsoft again, Bill Gates was very active when he was in the limelight. He was social a bit in those days also. So is there a trend that we are seeing that individual personalities are going to lead the marketing for each company in the coming days? Because those mostly people used to rely on the brand ambassadors in the initial days. So early days, I think early 2000s, still that was the trend. Today we have influencers, but then the company owners need to become their brand ambassadors themselves. Is there something, a trend which you are seeing?
I think so. And I'd put this down to as well the fact that there's just so many more companies now. So when companies start, before they can get to the place that they can hire someone to be in charge of it, the founders need to be comfortable with being that themselves. Whilst you're still in that growth stage, you might not get to that next round of funding or grow those customers unless the founders can be comfortable being on camera or creating content or whatever it is. So I think that is definitely driving this trend. It definitely doesn't have to be the case. It could be that you outsource it to content creation agencies, for example, and that can work. But again, there's the cost involved. So when companies are small, they need to find a way of making content themselves, because it is the best way of growing is through content, even more than ads, I'd say, because it's just so much more sustainable, and it creates this constant stream of people coming in because they're engaging not just with your content, but with you as a person as well. But I think that's probably the driving factor of this recently is competition is just so much higher now than it would have been in the past for all different types of companies. So if they can, the biggest differentiator for any company is you and who you are. And if the founders can do that, it helps so much. It doesn't necessarily have to be the founder, though. It could be, someone who's like the first employee. But I think that whatever way you can form a story around it to make that into a reason behind it, that could be content in itself as well. Or even, I mean, this is a slightly different way, but it could be like the office pet.
Yeah, a lot of agencies are using that.
Yeah, it's because you can easily create a story around that. What have they been up to today? We've got them a new toy or a new outfit, and they're trying this. And that can definitely help. And that could be a great way to start making content as well, because that's more fun. And then you introduce people after that. But yeah, I think that's definitely why, just from the amount of competition and the costs, so that they've had to. And then once they've started that way, it's much easier to continue onwards from that.
And mostly they have that one thing in common in that way. So if you see a lot of agencies have their pets as their brand ambassadors. and they represent things in a way what their pets are saying or what are they doing today. So if a cat is not in a mood today, oh, our agency is not in mood today, and those kind of things happen. True. I think that is something that a lot of agencies will learn from in that way, that there are ways of creating content in a way. But one thing which a lot of people don't understand or fail at is using tools, and which kind of tools are the best. So before TikTok came in, TikTok is banned in a few countries in Southeast Asia now, but it changed a lot of things in a way how people edit videos. It became very easy for them to edit. But in the same ways, like Canva is there for the people who are into designing, are there any tools which people can use and create content very easily in that way? Because subtitling and those kind of things are there, which create a lot of problem for people.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the channels that you want to focus on, and this is different for every company. So I think you'd definitely start there um, to know what content you need to create. So if your channel that you know you need to focus on is YouTube, then the editing tools you use might be slightly different if your channel is Instagram, for example. But there seems to be apps appearing all the time now for different ways you can edit. I mean, TikTok makes the process so easy, and even Instagram Reels now, they have a very similar design there. But even with stories, I still think that the best way to make the content is just using your phone. Even if you then want to bring this content to YouTube, you can still upload it and use it that way. But I'd say, so to give a little bit more background on the way I've moved forward with my content, just on my like personal content that I create. So I started on Snapchat, and then, with stories, and then moved across to Instagram after they copied Snapchat. But they also made it much easier to discover content as well. So this was making content around how to code, teaching people how to make apps. What I've done since then is I've moved this across to YouTube, because I'm now more comfortable on camera, and I can use that same skills that I've made on stories and put it onto YouTube. And all I had to do was, instead of recording on my phone like this, I just switched it like this. And all of the other equipment I've got, I can still use. So I just have a simple tripod, and you just set it up and record and just edit it together in the same way. So it's a short clip, and then you just drag in a short clip. And in terms of subtitling, again, it depends on the platform you want to use, but there's online tools like Veed, Capwing, even Canva. So you can just drag on the different elements. And I mean, this isn't quite what we do, but at Snapped, what our sort of main mission is to make it easy to repurpose content that you have created on your phone. So if that is for TikTok, on Instagram, and then reusing this across the web. So this could be an email campaign, on your website, even on social media again, perhaps on a different channel like Twitter, and then starting to make sure this video is put to use in more different ways. Because like you say, if you've gone through the lengths, if you weren't feeling comfortable on camera, you've put yourselves through this process where you now do, and you've recorded something that you're really proud of, you want to make sure that it's used in a lot of different ways and you're getting value out of it. Or even if you've paid for an influencer campaign and they've made some great content, we can help you reuse that, across your website or in an email campaign as well. So I think that's what it's important to do, is make sure when you are creating content, it's great in the moment, especially on social media, and you can use the great tools that are built into the apps as well for that. But once you've created it, you can then take it outside of those platforms and use it in so many more ways as well.
So, Russell, going forward, do you think there are any major thing that people need to remember, or the things which are going to happen in 2021, which people can jump on and then easily learn about, that these are the trends which are going to be there, or these are the platforms which we have to always target in a way?
It's a really good point. I think one thing I've noticed recently that surprised me quite a lot is just the growth of YouTube. It's
Yeah,
crazy how quickly now that's still growing, because I remember a few years ago thinking, how much more can YouTube
YouTube
grow?
do.
And it has. It keeps breaking records year after year. So I think if your company doesn't have a channel on YouTube and you want to be making video content, not only just to engage with people, but for SEO as well, that's going to be more and more of a factor, where Google starts to prefer video. And social media is great, but it doesn't necessarily help us much with SEO. But YouTube and that channel can really help push that. Um, And it seems to me as well that YouTube is starting to favor videos that are on the longer side rather than really short videos. So I think one of the biggest trends that I'll be predicting right now is this move of brands and influencers as well to be creating short content and long content, but not too much in between. So it's this level of making sure that you're offering value in short, easy to digest chunks that is great for social media, and even a short video on YouTube, and then really in-depth, almost like free courses that you can put together for YouTube, or even for, you could then take that content and use something like OBS to then live stream that. Even if you've made it beforehand, you could live stream a pre-made video if it's long enough. And that can drive really good engagement as well. And you could use that across multiple channels at the same time. In terms of the channels, I think to focus on, it depends on where your audience is. I mean, LinkedIn is an interesting one. I think it's still a massive channel, but at the moment, it's not really being utilized. I mean, a lot of people are posting to it, but a lot of it is content that was either made on other platforms or reposted, and it feels like the same story each time. I think there's a lot that's going to happen with LinkedIn soon that can really help, like people who move onto it early and create really valuable content native to LinkedIn, especially for business to business, will be a great channel to focus on. But again, Instagram, if you want to, and TikTok, if you want to find a sort of younger audience. Again, that's different on each industry depending on where your audience is. But that's the research that, again, there's lots of content out there on where to find your audience. But I would say, even if you're not sure, the best way is just to test, start creating content, see how it works. And if it does work really well, reuse that on another platform as well. Not exactly the same. You might want to change it just a little bit, but that could just be adding a more in-depth intro in front of your existing video, just with, again, minimal editing, just stitch them together. But I think the most important thing moving forward is just starting. If you're not creating video content yet, now's the time to start, because it's only going to get bigger and more competitive as things move forward.
So a lot of taking the question a bit more further. So while the editing part is okay, the content part is also now published, and we know which platforms to focus on. A lot of agencies always feel consistency is not coming on the place, because a team member is there and then somebody leaves and then somebody else comes, and as an agency, people are always short of time in a way. And sometimes they feel posting on social media is a difficult thing, and then when we ask them to post videos, it again becomes difficult for them. So is there any way where like people say on Twitter, you can automate things and it will run on its own, it will repost things here and there. So for topics, also for video topics, is there a way where people can get a guide or something of that sort, that these are the trending topics which people can talk about? Or what is your way of going forward, of finding the new content pieces that you want to create?
It's a difficult one. I mean, and it also is potentially the most important as well. Like you say, consistency, especially for all of the different platforms, really, and YouTube especially. Consistency is the number one thing that you can do. If you can be consistent, you're going to win in the long term. But doing that isn't easy. And like you say, thinking of content, which is probably still now the most thing I spend, maybe not the most time on, but certainly the most thinking time. It's something that not just you can post, but people are going to engage with. What are they searching for? So one of the things I would look at, and similar in the way that you would go about SEO, what blog post should you be creating? Look at that and think, okay, this is what people are searching for. And you can do the same thing on YouTube. There's tools you can get to find like search volume around certain topics. I think the best ones, there's a Chrome extension called TubeBuddy, I think it's called. And that will tell you how much volume different searches are getting. But I wouldn't just go and just create a video on that straight away. What you would then do is try and find, again, that cornerstone topic that your brand is going to be known for. And there'll be lots and lots of videos you can create around this topic. And even if it's just updating old content, that can be a really useful thing to do as well. But a tip for how to be consistent is to batch record a lot of videos in the same day, or over a couple of days, and then edit them similar at the same time as well. So it's a lot easier to stick to that task if you're doing it all in one go, rather than and then record one video today, another one tomorrow, and then go back to my other work after that. That's really difficult because you're constantly switching what you're thinking about and the different tools that you're using. And it's probably easier on your computer or your laptop as well. If you're editing in one go, it can get used to that. I'm not completely sure if that's the case in terms of the hardware, but it always seems like that with my laptop. But once you do it that way and you start batch recording and batch editing, you can schedule it again, depending on the different platform. You usually can schedule. You can schedule to YouTube. There's tools you can use to schedule into Instagram video and Facebook as well. And then you can start to create this plan of these are the topics we're going to focus on, even for a whole month at a time. And then hopefully, I mean, if a staff member is leaving, that's always going to be difficult, and it's going to be a tricky one to how to deal with that. But if you plan a month ahead, it just gives you that bit of extra time to then plan for the next month as well. Because if you can try and get the content creation time down to as small as possible, and like Gary Vee says, if you're documenting, that's sort of his go-to word, that's a great way of taking away the time from, focusing on this is a whole video we're making this today. If you're just constantly recording, that's useful, but again, that's more time in editing as well, which is something you might want to look at as an agency. If you don't want to have too much time editing, then it's easier to record a specific thing. But the more time you can spend planning, not necessarily time, but thought that goes into it, in terms of we're going to record our morning chats around the morning topic or the morning meeting, whatever it is in your particular agency. And you could then edit that into something that's quite short. And that could be a recurring series. So if you can have these pieces of content and the recurring pieces of content, and then your cornerstone content, batch record that, and then make it sure that everyone knows that this is our routine. And then everyone buys into it, because there's no point saying we're going to start making video content if your team isn't like all interested and wants to move towards this as well. So you have to have a strong why about why you're actually going to invest this time and money as well. It's not free to get the people to really want to do it. So once you know that everyone wants to get involved, make it fun as well if you can. Don't think of it as something that's going to be difficult, because it can be fun if you can put like incentives around it as well for different staff members. You could even say, whoever gets the most views on a particular video gets an Amazon card or something at the end of the month or at the end of the year. That's a good way of incentivizing people to want to make the best video. And then you can make it a little bit of a competition as well. But again, I'd still make sure to have a consistent host, and then you can have the different ideas. And if you are in an agency, take advantage of that, because different people have different experiences, different stories that will be unique to them. And if you could even have a shared Notion or shared document somewhere where people can put ideas onto. And then when you're getting to that time of that month where you want to batch record those videos or start planning out, these are the ones we're going to make this month, that's when you can go through the list of ideas that people have. You could even let people vote on the best ones that they think could work well, and just try and get everyone involved, everyone moving towards that goal. And you'll quickly find that the more people are interested in it, and over time, as your channel or your profile starts to grow, people will naturally want to be more involved with it then as well, because the numbers are that much bigger, you're reaching more people, and it will quickly start to build momentum, and everyone will just want to get involved with it more that way. And that will help for potentially having guests on as well, because the incentives for them are higher. So it's just having this a mission behind why you're doing it. You don't just want to start a channel, record a video here or there, and then find that 2 months have gone and there hasn't been any new videos. That's what you want to try and avoid. So if when you're starting, get comfortable on video first, as many people as possible within the company, that would be great if they all start it at the same time. And then you can start to plan around this, knowing that you've got basically a lot of hosts that you can have. And then you can start to build in these different types of content that you can have on this recurring main theme, and then build from there.
Great answer to that, because that is the major problem which people feel, that how to build in consistency. And I think it was a very comprehensive way of looking at it. What are the things, what are the problems, and what can be a possible solution for the same. As we are moving to the end of the podcast now, I usually ask 2 questions to all the hosts. One is being in this industry, which changes a lot. So you started with Snapchat. You liked the doing videos there. Then the things on Snapchat were copied by Instagram. Then it was copied everywhere else. Again, the organic reach on Facebook decreased. Something else happened. Google Plus came. It went. What is your motivation to keep on going in this field? Because it is a very you being a developer, if you would have learned Python or one language, it would have at least been there for next 10 years, 7 years time. So how do you see these things?
I think the biggest thing is just, I almost think of it as, a boat on the water. If you worry too much about each wave, you're going to get seasick really quickly. So it's important just to try and, things are going to change. There's going to be things that are going to move. But that's why whenever I try and look at, even like when we were earlier explaining about the different apps, what are the trends there? Try and look to things that what's similar, what's the thing that they all have in common, and then trying to find that main theme. And ultimately with social media and with marketing, the main thing you want to try and build is you want to build attention, create leads, start more conversations. And that's never going to change. The tools that we use and the channels that we use, they're going to change. Things will come, things will go. But so long as your goal around what you're trying to create, why you're doing what you're doing, and having the team working on that, then it makes it easier when things change. Obviously, if you've built a really strong TikTok profile and then the app gets banned, that's always going to be really annoying and really painful. Yeah. But if you have this mindset that this is what we're moving towards, the main goal is to create more conversations. Things will go wrong. There will be apps that might fail, but so long as you know that that's your main target, and that overall, across different channels and different areas, and it's important as well to make sure that you're building up your traffic to your website, not just relying on these platforms as well, which is where Snapped helps. But so long as you're doing all these different things, the main goal you'll be always making progress towards. And I'd say that's one of the ways that it doesn't worry me too much. But there's always going to be things that are less than ideal. You can have years like 2020 that don't go to plan. But there's no point worrying about things when it doesn't work. It's about what you do next that's the most important thing.
Great. Other thing is, what are your source of getting this knowledge from? So where do you read books? Do you keep blogs at bay, or you read every day? What are the things? How do you learn new things which are coming?
I mean, one of the things I try and do, I try and block out time each weekend just to try and watch a lot of content on YouTube. That's probably one of my favorite platforms at the moment. Often on double speed, so you can get through more quickly. A lot of people I like to follow on Twitter. That's a great place to just, because the tweets are short, it keeps everything condensed. And it's sort of a combination between those two. But I like reading in-depth, blog post reviews about things that people are expecting for the year. And I like reading people's yearly reviews as well about what they learn from their experience from a whole year, because it compiles it all into like really easy to digest content. But I just think it's important just to always be trying to soak up just as much knowledge, as much information as possible, but not worrying about things as well. People, I think, can get over concerned about small things, when if you have that bigger goal, again, like I was saying, then it doesn't matter too much in the short term, as long as you're moving towards that main goal that you're ultimately striving for.
Great. Thanks a lot, Russell, for doing this with us. It was a great time hosting you. Thank you for coming today.
Thanks so much. It's been great to chat, and it's been really interesting.